How are you using live video? How are you using live audio? That's the questions that we've got in the Live Stream Insiders. My name is Krishna Day, and I'm one of the hosts for Live Stream Insiders. I'm usually joined by my co-host, Peter Stewart, but he's on an extended vacation at the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover some topics of news as we normally do. Our goal here at the Livestream Insiders is to give you the best practice in terms of tools, technologies, tips. So on the show this week, we've got lots of tips coming up because we've got a feature episode where we're going to be speaking about live audio, a topic we've talked about a couple of times, but not too often. That's why I'm delighted that I'm joined by a special guest with me today, and that's Rob Greenlee of Spreaker. Now, you might know Spreaker as a great platform for podcasting and also for audio and live audio. And so that's what we're going to talk about. But I've also got some news for you. We're going to have a couple of news stories and a couple of updates in terms of the app. So thank you, everybody, for joining me here live for Livestream Insiders. We stream at the same time every week. That's 7 p.m., that's 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And we love bringing to you lots of ideas and tips and case studies as well. So I want to do my best to watch out in terms of what's going on when I look at Facebook a little in a moment in terms of on my phone. And we'll be checking out that. But in the meantime, thank you for those of you who are here live and also those of you who are watching this on replay. Remember, everything that we talk about, any links to articles, tips, resources will all be available after the show. If you just check back here, you'll be able to see it. We also repurpose the show over onto YouTube. So if that's your preferred place of getting content and adding it to playlists to watch later, then you can find us over there on my YouTube channel. But all the details of that a little bit later on. So we thought we'd get started today with a little bit of news. And this is about 360 video, and that's something that I know we've talked about a few times here, and one of the sectors that is huge in terms of using live communications and has done for many years, and that is of course the area of sports. So the story that we've got for you this week is about the fact that in this case it's the NBA, and they're expanding their use of live streaming of games in virtual reality for the upcoming season. So this might be of interest to those of you who are watching from the US. And we'll tell you a little bit later about how you'll be able to get access to this as well. So this season coming up is actually going to have streamed 27 games will be live streamed in virtual reality. That's actually 6 more than previously in a previous season. And it's actually been done in collaboration with Next VR in the Next VR app. And what's going to happen is they've got a screening room to be able to allow anybody who uses the Next VR app to be able to get in with their NBA League Pass. So you need to have a paid pass to do that. And you can watch up to 13 League Pass games at once on a virtual screen. And if you want a virtual courtside seat, the article that I was reading at Digital Trends was saying that you need an NBA pass, League Pass subscription, and you can either opt in for the full season, which apparently is $200 US. Let me know if you're actually planning to do that, or if you know friends or family who are doing it and what they think of the experience. But if you want to go for individual games, this sounded like really good value because it was $7 a game, and I thought that was very good value. The Next VR app is available on the Samsung Gear VR. It's also available on Google Daydream, and the games are going to be available on VR on Microsoft's forthcoming Windows Mixed Reality Viewer, and that's actually from this month. It was due to have started from October the 17th. And if you want the full outline of all the games that are going on, then you'll be able to find that over on the Next VR website. So I think that's pretty interesting, isn't it? Being able to actually direct yourself in terms of wherever you want to go, in terms of being able to watch the sports that's going on there. I think that's an amazing opportunity. And I hope this gets rolled out to lots of other sports. I've done lots of work in the world of horse racing with lots of different race courses. And I know that there's a challenge there sometimes, isn't there, about what we can live stream because of the rights and rights management, and particularly if those rights have been sold to a broadcasting organization. But there are also some opportunities perhaps for those events that haven't got the main rights to, that actually you could start to experiment with. But I think that sounds pretty interesting, to be able to go wherever you want to in terms of watching the match and watching a game in terms of what's happening. I think there's huge opportunity for VR in sports going forward. So I'm looking forward to actually finding out how you think this goes if you actually are watching it. Now, bringing us on then in terms of what happens if you actually are doing any 360 live. Perhaps you're doing that on Facebook, perhaps you're doing it on YouTube, or perhaps you're streaming to Periscope, for example, as some of the platforms that you can use for 360 live. One of the challenges I know often is about what do you do when you want to repurpose your content. Here at Livestream Insiders, we get far more views and interaction and questions, even privately, actually after we've done a show than live. We stream live at this time, and I know it's not the ideal time for everybody, but that's just because actually it's the time and the week that Peter can be sure that he's not working in his journalistic role, and he makes himself available. So we consistently have a show at the same time. And that means, therefore, that we try to then do things like repurpose and republish our content after a live stream. And perhaps that's something you're doing. Maybe there's little segments you want to take. And that's the case in terms of a 360 live. What do you do? So we've talked about 360 a lot on Livestream Insiders over the episodes. You can find all of the episodes in terms of, certainly for this year, back over at livestreaminsiders.com, and you can click through and find all the details of all the shows there. But one of the things that I came across this week, and it's thanks to Primal Video, and that's Jason over there. I actually was watching a video he'd done, and he was referencing an app that I hadn't come across. But let me tell you why I'm pretty excited about this, and why I think you might be too. So this is an app that's in beta on Google, so you can already get it on Google. And I've actually just signed up today to get access to it on iOS. So that fundamentally is why I'm pretty excited about it, because it allows us to edit video from 360, and it allows us to do it on iOS and Android. Why am I excited about that? Well, because when I teach in terms of, let's say, PR or marketing communications people, I like to be able to offer apps that work across both platforms. So, I know it's often frustrating for people who've got, let's say, an Android device and the app isn't yet available. So this looks like it's going to be really interesting. What you need to do is go over to collect.video. And so the app is called Collect. And on that web page, you'll be able to get a link to be able to register for the alpha version of the iOS app, which is what I've done. I haven't heard back from them yet, but I wasn't expecting to, with it being a Sunday. And you can also go and you can register for the beta app on Android. If you get a chance to play with it before I do, I'd love to know what you think. But this looks like it could be a great opportunity because you'll be able to stitch your content together. It didn't look to me as though you were going to be able to do any overlays in terms of text or other animations. Perhaps that's coming. And of course, with all apps, the developers are always interested in terms of our feedback. And so if you're interested in 360 video, I definitely suggest you take a look at that. So talking about journalists, as I was just a moment ago, I actually am in a number of communities where there are lots of mobile journalists, people who are creating content on their mobile device. And you'll know that Peter does that as well in terms of his work for his organization, which is a major broadcaster. And he does a lot of content, both live and recorded content, that he will then edit. And he's often editing on a mobile device because he's out in the field. And we see more and more of that happening. And in fact, in a couple of weeks' time, just before Peter's back from his vacation, I've got a fantastic conversation lined up for you with a good friend of mine who's actually a mobile broadcaster, really at the cutting edge, has been involved in this, and he's based in Canada, and he's going to be talking to us about some of the things he's been doing, particularly in terms of when he's been doing some live streaming at times of, let's say, events, natural disasters, and so on. That's going to be really interesting. So when you're out there and you've got your mobile device, you might be thinking, well, what's the different ways I can stream? And we talk about Facebook Live here because it's a huge platform. It's not the only platform we talk about. But I saw a lot of mobile broadcasters this week actually concerned about they couldn't find access to how to be able to do Facebook Live. So I thought what I'd do is actually hop on over to my own account on Facebook, and I did this on mobile. So Facebook Live Audio is only available on your mobile device. And it's been available for about a year for some people, because I remember talking about this at the end of last year, of 2016. And again, in the archives of this show, you'll be able to find a link to a full tutorial I did. Now, at the time, I initially had access to this only on my own Facebook profile and on Android. I now have access to this if I want to go via my own profile or a page on the regular Facebook app. But it's also available and rolling out. I know some people still don't have it, so make sure you've got the updated app for the Facebook Pages app, because there's a separate app if you're a contributor to a Facebook page. Now, of course, there's Facebook Mentions as well. That's for those of you who are celebrities or working with celebrities or are journalists, you may have that. But today I'm talking about the Facebook Pages app. And so let me just show you about how you're going to be able to do this. And for those of you who are watching or listening to this, in terms of actually you're not watching the screen, or in fact, you're going to listen to this as a podcast, audio podcast later on, I'll do my best to actually talk you through what you'll be able to find. So firstly, make sure you've got the update for your Facebook Pages app. Now, these screenshots were taken on iOS that I'm going to talk through now. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to your page, and at the top of that page, you'll see that there's an option to actually share, a photograph as usual, but one of the options is to go live. So click on the Go Live button. From the Go Live button, what you need to do then, and this is what I think is confusing people, because a couple of months ago, this interface changed. What happens now is you actually used to see a little microphone, which would give you an indication to go for live audio, and you used to see a little video kind of camera, which would say, I want to do live video. Well, that's not there anymore on the most recent update. And as I said, this has been here like this for about 2 months. So what you will see instead is you have to look carefully down at the bottom next to your Go Live red button. There's a little button that actually has 3 little dots in it. So look for the 3 little dots, click on the 3 little dots, and then that will give you the option to do live audio. So if you want to do live video, just put your title in and go for it. Click the red button and go live. But if you want to do live audio, you need to click those little buttons, and then what you can do is you can click on live audio. That will then bring you up another screen, and this is another thing that I see people often forgetting to do. You can put an image in there. So having a really interesting image on your live audio could actually attract people to watch it. Now, you can't put an animated GIF or a video in there. It just has to be an image. So if you're out on location, it's a great idea to take a photograph of that location, and you might put an overlay on it to tell people about what it is, to capture people's attention. Add that to your live audio before you hit the Go Live button for your audio. So I hope that helps you in terms of those of you who are thinking about using Facebook Live in terms of for live audio. And this is a really, really powerful tool, because I know nobody has the intention of being on camera all the time, or perhaps some of you do. I had no intention of being on camera. I have to tell you, don't tell anybody, but audio is my first love. Absolutely, I love audio, and that's for so many reasons. We could devote another 3 shows to that topic on its own right. But I know that sometimes there's times that we don't actually want to be on camera, or it wouldn't serve us well to be on camera. We actually just want to get the content there, or the people that we're with would prefer not to be on camera. And in addition, the live audio feature is also made available by Facebook, because there are some parts of the world that perhaps you don't have such good data connections, or data is really expensive to access, and that's why audio plays a fantastic role. So I hope that's helpful to you. I'm going to actually now just segue into more live audio content, because I'm thrilled that today we're going to be talking to Rob Greenlee. Now, I've known Rob and his work for a long, long time. He's, been in the world of podcasting and more recently in terms of live audio. And I say recently, I'm not talking about the last 5 minutes. We'll hear about that in just a moment. But I was really excited that he was able to join us, is able to join us here today. So let me just do a quick segue into what we're going to be talking about next. Then what I'll do is I'm going to take a look to see if anybody's got any questions, because I'd love your questions for this next segment as well, in terms of what questions you've got about live audio. So what we're going to be talking about now is the following. How could you use live audio in your communications? Remember, that could be marketing communications. It could be social selling. It could be employee engagement. It could even be for crisis management. If you don't want to be on camera, or the people around you don't want to be on camera, or perhaps the situation isn't the most visually engaging content, then live audio just might be the right thing for you. You can do things like building your visibility, getting much more brand awareness for yourself personally, for your personal brand, or for your organization or your products. You can do things in terms of attracting leads, and you could even increase sales by using live audio. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking to Rob Greenlee, who's the head of content for an organization that some of you might be using already, their platform. It's called Spreaker. But Spreaker is much more than what you might expect because of some of the things we're going to be talking about today. So Spreaker is a platform, and it's a tool that I use. I actually pay to use it. I've had the great opportunity to meet with the Spreaker team at a conference back in 2016, and they're very active. You might have met them at conferences because there are lots and lots of live conferences. They're at podcasting conferences. They're very often supporting those conferences as sponsors as well. And I'm delighted that actually we've got Rob Greenlee with us today, who is the person is in charge of content for Spreaker. So Rob, thank you so much for being available today for the Livestream Insider Show. I'm really looking forward to our conversation to help me get better in terms of using live audio and particularly, obviously, your platform. But why don't you take it away for us in terms of, tell us about your journey, because you are not new to any of this multimedia lark. You've got quite a corporate background and other organizations you've been with. Why don't you tell us about your personal journey around multimedia, be it that video, audio, live content as well?
Krishna, it's great that you're having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to be on a program around a passionate individual doing really audio, podcasting, video, the whole thing. So it's an honor to be here. As far as my journey in being involved in this medium, it's long, and it would probably take the rest of your show to run through it, because I've been basically involved in doing live audio since 1999, either on the radio, and then I took it out of the radio station and started doing it out of my bedroom, which is a typical situation. Not so much the radio side, but doing your show out of a room or a closet or or from your car, and so those were the early days. I had to spend a lot of money on equipment, and nowadays, not jumping ahead too quick here, but you don't have to do that. The tools are easy to use. The quality is really good. But my journey really has been around using this medium as a marketing tool. My background's in marketing. That's how I came into this. I was trying to market my consulting business that I was doing to help people use search engines to market their businesses. So search engine optimization. So that's what pulled me into doing live audio and audio, was being reach more customers and more clients for my consulting business. So I walked into a radio station, started doing a live show every Saturday morning, and did that for about 6 years. And over that period of time, I took my show out to the internet, because that was back in the early 2000s, like 2000, 2001, and started distributing my show online and making my show available as an MP3 download, getting on streaming platforms, like Windows Media. So I had my own Windows Media streaming servers. I had my own real servers that I was streaming my show, as well as streaming other shows that I was starting to work with as well over the years that went by, because I built my own server infrastructure to do this, because back in those days, the infrastructure that we experience today, like Beans and Spreaker didn't exist. So I kind of had to do my own thing. I had to work with these larger companies that had servers that could enable this. So I started down that path more from creating content and marketing, and then I wound up leaving that show, stopping that show in 2006, and started working more behind the scenes while still doing podcasting. I was still behind the mic, but I was also working on platforms. So I went to work for a mobile startup company up in Seattle called Melodio Mobilecast. We were building Java apps for, in the early days, dumb phones, not smartphones, which we all use today, but the very early kind of phones that had data connections, and making audio available. So back in 2005, 6 was when podcasting really started to take off. And so that's what I started to work, kind of more of a content side, more of a platform side, to distribute audio, and have continued that. And I left there to go to work for Microsoft, ran the Zune podcasting platform for 6 years, and got involved in working Xbox and the Windows Phone platform, which Microsoft has decided to move on from podcasting and is not really supporting it anymore. So I left there to go to work for Podcast One down in Los Angeles, which is a big podcasting network that makes available shows like the Adam Carolla Show and a lot of big celebrities out of Hollywood. So I spent a year down there as their chief technology officer, and then left there and went to work for Spreaker. Spreaker is like the perfect platform. It's a 360-degree solution from creation, has their own recording, live streaming software, all the way over to publishing podcasts or publishing a live, like radio-like show, over to listening. So they have the listening apps. So what we've been working on here recently is building more monetization tools into the platform, so podcasters and audio creators can monetize what they're doing and make money from what they're doing, and maybe quit their day jobs at some point, which a lot of podcasters have had the desire to do for a long time. So that's kind of a relatively quick snapshot of background in this, but all along I've been involved in creating audio shows. I did the Zune Insider podcast for many years. I also have done shows for Spreaker. I did shows for Melodio Mobilecast. I've been involved in like the new media show and technology programs for many, many years myself. So been a steadcaster, and was just here this past year inducted into the Podcasters Hall of Fame. So which is kind of like, it's not the end of my career, which getting inducted into Hall of Fame means that it's at the end of your career. But so I'm still charging forward, trying to explore this medium and expand it and make it grow and make it bigger.
And I think we've got some similar kind of connections as well, because I too started podcasting, and actually later than yourself. I started in 2005. And actually that was, the thing I was doing more of than video at that time. I did create my first videos and various other things at that time in the summer of 2005, but podcasting was the thing that really took off for me. And I actually, I think you remember a show that we did, because I think we connected through it, called the Podcast Sisters. So it was myself and Anna Farmery and Heather Gorringe. Every single Sunday, again around the same time, we used to do a podcast, and we used to record it via Skype. And I think I think it's one of the times that I'd originally connected with you in the work you were doing in podcasting at that time. And obviously had seen you as a luminary and a first mover in terms of particularly with your technical background as well. So let's talk a little bit about Spreaker, and I have to say thank you everybody who's joining us here live. We're getting some nice comments about the fact of I think it's a great topic for today's show, and I couldn't agree more. I think in terms of live audio, it's sometimes it's something that people don't often explore in terms of for their own organizations. They often think about live video because it gets so much publicity, but that's why I think it's worthwhile us talking about it today. So let's talk about Spreaker as a platform. So tell us about what it does and give us a sense of the scale of the organization, because I met the Spreaker team who are, the part of the team is based in Europe, and that's how I'd met them at a conference in Europe. But also tell us about that recent acquisition. I won't say anything more. I'll let you tell people, because it probably passed a few people by, because it did for me.
Well, we actually here recently, in this last couple of months, we merged with another large platform in audio, which is a company called Blog Talk Radio. So we've kind of merged with them. They're a company that's very similar to Spreaker from the standpoint that they're into live audio, and they have tools and things that enable content creators to use telephony to call in and create shows as well. And so we just thought it was a perfect partnership to try and work with those guys to try and merge their technology, which they have very strong monetization tools as well. But they've got like 25, 30,000 shows on their platform, and we have like 25, 30,000 shows. So we were very compatible with that company. And so we just figured combining it together would create a much bigger, more powerful company that had tools that they had built that we needed. And then we had tools that they needed as well. So we're very strong in mobile. We've built a lot of client applications for listening as well as creation. Blog Talk Radio did not have those, but Blog Talk Radio put a lot of investment into monetization. So the dynamic ad insertion technology, you know, the sales organization to drive advertising into content, that was a big piece that was missing from Spreaker. So combining these together really kind of filled out the company. Plus, it also doubled the staff as well. So we went from about 13, 15 people up to about 30 people now. So we have more resources, more ability to create content. There's more revenue coming in from the combined company. So I think we can grow quicker and we can do more to create a more complete platform. Really, a 360-degree solution has yet to be really developed. There's no other company in the space that's as close as the combined elements of Spreaker and Blog Talk Radio to create a 360-degree solution for all levels of content creator, from the biggest media companies in the world to an individual podcaster. And that's the opportunity that I got excited about, and why I came to this company was there's really only a handful of companies that have the opportunity to create a platform like that.
In fact, I used Blog Talk Radio myself for many years. In fact, almost at the time when they first launched. And I used to host live shows there in terms of, that was back in, gosh, I can't even remember how long ago it is since they first established. And I had a couple of different shows, in fact, probably 2 or 3 different ones. Now, I haven't been on the platform myself, and I'm sure it's changed a lot in most recent years. But it was, a very, very easy platform for people to use in terms of having their own show. And I think that was one of the ways that probably, I think, became an easy way for people to be able to do it. Now, obviously, Spreaker was developed. I think you started off after that. But tell people about the kind of the services that let's say Spreaker is offering people, and how organizations might think about it in the context of not just podcasting. Let's specifically look at live audio and what the role is that live audio can play in communications for people.
Well, if we look at it from a really high level, live audio can serve in some ways that maybe some people haven't thought of outside of radio, right? So you start thinking about the role that live radio has played in our society, whether it's here in the United States or around the world, and it's served as a method of getting current data about what's happening in your particular area. And I think live audio has a place to play here moving forward, as radio tends to kind of, I hate to say, kind of decline in their listeners. If you look at it from a generational perspective, fewer younger people are listening to radio, but they're listening to content that's coming off of the World Wide Web and the internet. So transferring some of that demand and that need over to the digital side is the bigger Uber trend that's happening. So you think about live sports, you think about live events in local cities, all of the sports events that happen at schools. A lot of that has been served by local radio, which is no longer doing that. So live audio can serve kind of a wide spectrum of very nichified content, all the way down to very local content. And that's where I see kind of this merger happening between live audio and replacing radio in the role that it's had. Now, looking at Spreaker and the tools that we provide live streaming software. It's called Spreaker Studio for desktop. For Windows and Mac, as well as iOS and Android. So you can do live streaming or recording of your podcast and publish it immediately through that app right from your mobile device or desktop computer. So you can have the most professional studio that can produce like tracks of audio. You can create like a 24/7 radio station if you want to on the platform, and many people do. All the way down to just recording an audio segment or just live streaming an audio segment. And then what we're trying to plug in right now, like I was talking about earlier, is the monetization, to be able to monetize that, to make some income off of your efforts with podcasting. Because most of podcasting up to today has been hobby. It's been a hobby. Sure, there's been some big media companies that have been involved in it that have monetized it and tried through those issues. But it's been a challenge for most audio creators to make some income from what they're doing with their podcasting, adding value to communities out there. And then Spreaker has kind of moved over to building out very strong listening applications as well. So you can listen to content on Spreaker, content that's off of Spreaker as well. So we've brought in audio podcasts from other hosts as well that are in the platform. So the most popular and biggest podcasts out there, you can get through the Spreaker listening apps today as well. So those apps are available on iOS, Android, and there is still an app available on Windows Phone, which is in a state of decline right now. So that's kind of a summary of it. The plans are based on audio storage and live streaming duration. So we do have a free plan that you can come in, and it's basically a trial plan is what it is. So you can test the platform, get accustomed to it, and then just move up to the next plan, which is like $6 a month, which is really, really reasonable. And that gives you all of the tools that you need to build your distribution, create a show, actually create multiple shows actually. So that's kind of a snapshot of the platform.
So let's give people a quick recap, and thanks everybody for joining us here live, and particularly in terms of Sabrina. I think you're getting pretty excited about the idea of live audio, but Sabrina does a lot of live video, particularly in terms of Periscope, and hosts lots of different streams there. And so, Sabrina, you'll have to let us know if you get going with this. But I just want to kind of come back as a quick recap in terms of the apps. So anybody can go into the iOS or the Android App Store and look for the Spreaker app in terms of to be able to listen to content that's actually there. Mm-hmm. And if we want to create content, which is where I want to really focus the next part of our conversation in terms of actually being able to do so, we can do so from our mobile device. And if you've been watching the Livestream Insiders for some time, we've been here together for more than 2 years now. You may have heard me say a few times about my journey in terms of using my iPhone versus my Android phone. Both, because I teach off both. But my movement to actually have an iPhone was at the time of the 3GS, because I then found that somebody who I respected a lot in terms of technology content that they were sharing, somebody I'd known from my childhood, I used to see her on TV. I found out that she was like me. She had a BlackBerry, which I had to have at the time for work. But in terms of, she had an iPhone that she was using for recording her audios for BBC. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for the BBC, that's good enough for me. So my journey in terms of podcasting, I used to bring all this kit with me, and it's like, I'm going to forget that now. I'm just going to take my phone, because if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. So, there's a number of apps that you can actually do podcasts on and record it. But on Spreaker, with their Rec app, the Record app, you actually can do so on your mobile device. So that's really powerful for those of you who are out and about. Or, in fact, I know not everybody has got an up-to-date computer. You may have a more up-to-date phone than you have a computer. If you really like your desktop, and I was teaching somebody for the last number of weeks, and they just love their desktop, they really don't like mobile at all, then you can actually record your content and stream it there on desktop as well. I'd love to talk about your shows, because you do a couple of different shows. One I listen to pretty regular, because I actually pick it up, and you do it with Todd Cochran of Blueberry. And again, I've known Todd for many, many years as a podcast hosting platform. But one of the things that is interesting is that you also do a Spreaker show as well. And you might want to tell people how they can get the access to the Spreaker show to be able to listen to that. But particularly in terms of, I'd love to talk about how you're doing it yourself and give people a few kind of tech tips, but keep it simple for us, because I know you're a gadget guru, okay, Rob. So keep it as simple as you can for us in terms of sometimes you're streaming live. So let's talk about that. But then I also like to talk about, for example, some of your shows you might stream live. For example, the show you do on a Saturday with Todd, you stream that live. I catch you on Facebook Live and watch that. And then also, I think you said to me, you stream it onto YouTube. But sometimes you only take the replays of that and then actually put that out as an audio podcast. So let's talk about what some of the things that people need to be aware of that might be different if you're thinking about streaming live audio, either from desktop or mobile first. And then let's look at what we can do with our live replays and how we can repurpose them as audio.
Well, there's a lot to talk about. I mean, doing live programming is not without some risks, and but it's also very, very exciting to do as well. I mean, I've evolved off and on with live audio for and actually live video for many years, and it's just been part of the fabric of my podcast creation or my content creation process. Is that it drives a lot of excitement and kind of enthusiasm and focus. Todd is a big proponent of live because there's a couple of benefits there. There's not a lot of post-production that you have to do, which can be very time-consuming. And when it's done, it's done. It's more authentic. It's more real to what the experience is. A lot of people that create audio programming, and they go in and they edit it and doctor it, and it becomes an experience that doesn't feel quite as authentic. So the creating of live content creates a different kind of content than it does pre-recorded content, which I've done many years of. That radio show I was telling you about, for many of the years, I pre-produced everything, and I found it to be very challenging and difficult to do produce content. I found doing live has a whole different kind of feel to it, and has a whole different kind of drive, and it forces you to really think on your feet more. When you're pre-producing stuff, you're second guessing yourself all the time, and because you can stop and redo it. But the opportunity, between those two shows, the Spreaker Live show that I do is actually live on Spreaker every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I use the Spreaker Video software. So that software that you're seeing on the screen right now is the software that I use on my desktop computer. It can be Mac or Windows, and it has the ability to bring in a Skype call. So you can bring a Skype call into your Spreaker Studio for desktop, for Mac or Windows, into the software, and be able to play sound effects. See those round circles on the right side of the software? You can just touch those or click on those, with your mouse to activate your exits and your intro music or your intro segments. Or if you have a conversation that you pre-recorded, you can play into that program. Some people use it for music. So you can drop in sound effects. You can do all sorts of stuff. So this is really kind of an audio creation tool that enables you to record as well as live stream. And it also supports up to 4 USB microphones plugged directly into the computer. So what this software does is really replace the need for a mixer. So you can I have a Microsoft Surface computer, and I just bring that on the road with me. And I get a little USB hub. It's like a USB 3 hub that has 4 ports on it. And I just plug in 4 USB-based microphones into that hub. And I can have 3 guests plus myself live just using my Surface computer. I can live stream or record right there. It's as simple as possible. The hub that I use is like $30. And each of the microphones that I recommend is the ATR 2100 from the Audio-Technica folks, and that's ATR 2100. It's about an $80 USB-based microphone. It also has an XLR port on it too. So if at some point you want to get a mixer, you can still use that microphone. So you just plug that XML port into your mixer. But for most people, just using USB 3.0 is good enough, and it will give you that quality audio that you want to do any live streaming or pre-recording. And you just keep it in your bag. You can take it on the road with you. You can do it from a hotel room. You can do it from your closet. You can do it wherever. And you would surprise how many podcasters actually record their show in their clothes closet because of the sound dampening of all the clothes that are around them versus doing it in like your kitchen table or something like that, which can be like a hardwood floor, not a lot of sound dampening, which can create a lot of echo. So those are high level tips that I would give you. And then on the new media show that I do with Todd Cochran, that's actually done just using webcams. He has a TriCaster in his studio in Hawaii. So he's got a $50,000 TriCaster that can bring in the audio, bring in these Skype-based videos into his software on that end, and he streams it out to Facebook and YouTube. We played around with other platforms as well that have come up over the years because we've been doing that show for a good 6 years or something like that. It wasn't always called the New Media Show. Before that, it was the Saturday Morning Tech Show, which we talked a lot about technology. And then over the last year and a half, 2 years, we shifted it over to the New Media Show because we were always talking about podcasting. And that show has no show prep at all. We just pull up our webcams at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, every Saturday morning, typically. Sometimes we do it on Sundays too, and just talk about the stuff that happened in the last week with, in the podcasting sector. So my Wednesday show, my Spreaker Live show that I do, that's a pre-scripted program. I've laid out my topics, what I want to talk about. I have a co-host that comes in and is like a color commentator on that. But the New Media Show is like two guys sitting in Starbucks talking about the industry. And that's the format of that show.
I can see here is happening is we've got a number of people who've joined us, and particularly I want to give a big shout out to Eileen. Eileen is a podcaster. You probably know her, and she's a user of the Spreaker platform. And I should just say that one of the things that I really like about Spreaker is the fact that I can get an email notification of the shows that I follow. And so, I'm more often on email than I am on anywhere else. And that's just the life I live. And so if I get a little notification there, then I can go over and I can listen to her live. And if I want to, I can, get into the app and leave comments. So it's a bit like Facebook Live in that you can interact with your audience there. And that's the other powerful thing, isn't it, in terms of questions you get from the audience actually can help you direct the show, be it on live video or in terms of live audio. So thanks, Eileen, for joining us here. I know that she's saying that she uses the iOS app and the desktop version. Let's talk a little bit in terms of just a few tips for people who perhaps like me have got a live show that they do. It might be a regular show, it might be a one-off. One of the things I really like about Spreaker that you don't get in most other platforms for audio is that I can have an account, which I have got in my name, but I can have what you described as multiple shows. So under my account, I could have, and I will have, I've already got a page there for the Live Stream Insiders. I've just not got round to actually, I've edited all the audio down, but I've not got around to actually putting that up onto Spreaker. But then I have another show called Talking Social Business, and I can have that separately. Then I could have like Krishna's favorites or whatever else I want to have. And each one of those also, we should talk about the fact of you can actually have an RSS feed for them individually, because therefore you can be promoting that RSS feed, putting it into iTunes, other platforms as well, to attract an audience. And I think, if I remember rightly, you're interconnected with, is it the Google product, or is it the Amazon product? I remember seeing an announcement recently about that, but actually the shows are also on there as well. So you could be having multiple shows and actually just under one account, which I think is really powerful because of the fact you have an RSS feed. And equally, you could bring an RSS feed into it. But let's talk about, I've got a show. It's lots of people who are watching today have got a show like I do. They've got a replay. They can make an audio of that. What are a couple of things that they need to watch out for as they then, let's say, create that show and upload it? So I'm thinking about, specifically if I think about podcasting, I think ID3 tags. Do I need to worry about that kind of thing? Do I need to worry about my podcast art? Do I need to worry about file size? And what about actually how to make sure that I've got the right kind of tools and tags to make sure it gets found, let's say, on iTunes? Just give us top line tips, because I know there's a lot of great resources on the Spreaker website, and the support team are really good at coming back, I have to tell you. So let's give people a few tips, because we've got a video recorded. What's the quick tips about saying, let's make that into an audio, ID3 tags, image that we need to have, optimization for iTunes, things that people perhaps get wrong that we can stop that happening today.
Well, it really gets back to a lot of common sense. I think, when you put out a podcast, you want to have it communicate. And I think that's the baseline. I mean, I started out doing my podcast or my radio show back in the early days, helping people with metadata. Really, when it comes right down to it, search engine marketing is about data. It's about text. It's about keywords, and those are very important in podcasting too. So as you think about your show, you need to think about important keywords that are associated with the content that you have. And those are going to be drivers of audience development when it comes to search engines. And so, whether it be the title of your program, the descriptions, the episode descriptions, the series descriptions, all those things are very. I know Apple's made some changes to their publishing tags that they have in their namespace that they've made available out there here recently, where the numbering of the episodes can be separate from the actual title of the episode. So you have those issues that you need to address and be complete with that. The ID3 tags are, I think, to some degree, a little bit less of an issue these days, just because of how the search engines work now. But Spreaker puts that stuff into the MP3 file for you, so you don't really have to do too much with that. So the big thing, though, from the standpoint, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about the publishing process, or we're talking about marketing of the program, but marketing a podcast is critical to have very good descriptive metadata, but it's also imperative. I mean, this is probably the number one thing that people make mistakes with, is their cover art, their album art. And making that cover art and album art be something that stands out, that looks professional, that it uses bold text, is colorful, looks professional. It looks like as much thought has gone into creating this graphic about your program as the quality of the content, because those are mapped together. People, it's kind of like putting up a billboard to promote your business. Right, that billboard needs to represent what that business is going to bring to you if you patronize it, or if you listen to it, or you go to it. It needs to be something that communicates value. It needs to be something that looks like you know what you're doing. So that's a very critical piece to this too. To clarify a little bit what you were talking about earlier about the announcement that we had this past week, we announced support for the Amazon smart speaker, the Echo device platform. I don't want to say the name of it, because if people are listening to this on their device, it'll activate the device and it'll cut off the show. So I don't want to say what the actual platform is, but it's made by Amazon, and it's part of the smart speaker Echo platform. And so we announced a app that basically installs on that platform, that all you have to say is the name of the platform and install that app in your device, and you can get access to all the content that's on the Spreaker platform. So there's only a couple of other platforms that have supported this platform to the level that we are. TuneIn is one of the other ones. There's more and more radio networks that are getting on board this smart speaker platform that we're seeing coming from Amazon and also coming from Google. And I believe Apple's going to come out with something very soon as well. So this is an important platform to be on as you look to the future of audio listening, because I believe these smart speaker platforms are going to ultimately, over the next 10 years, probably replace radio in most people's lives. So I think it's very, 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 very important to be a part of those. But Spreaker does support basic RSS. I think you need to, like you were talking about earlier, about being able to create multiple shows in your platform. I think that's another differentiation that Spreaker has, where you create one account. You can create as many shows as you want, separate programs that have separate RSS feeds that you want. You can also create like a mini network, is what you're basically enabled to do. It's all based on audio storage as far as what plans are. So if you're a prolific audio creator, you're going to need a plan that can support the storage of that audio. And if you're doing a lot of live audio as well, it's all based on the duration of a session, right? It's not based on how many live shows you do. It's based on how long those shows are. So some of our plans are about an hour long, some are 3 hours long. So you can do up to 3 hours a day, which there's very few people that will do 3 hours of audio programming a day. It's just not done. There's big radio celebrities that do 3 or 4 hours a day, but those are unusual. So I would say those are the most critical things. And then just get your show out to as many listening platforms as you can. And I know Spreaker is really focused on trying to enable that to be easy. Like we help you get into iHeartRadio, we get you into Sonos, we get you in, you can auto-publish into YouTube, you can auto-publish into SoundCloud, you can get into Twitter, Facebook, all these platforms automatically through our tools. And we're constantly working with the newer platforms like Spotify, and we're talking to Pandora and all these kind of music streaming platforms that are interested in getting into podcasting, maybe developing relationships with those type of platforms as you look to the future as additional distribution platforms. And Google has the Google Play podcast area, but Google, I know, is working on a whole nother platform for consuming podcasts. So we'll have to see what that turns out to be. They have a team that's working on that right now, and we'll see what comes from it. There's really nothing I can announce or say of what they're going to do, but if you think about Android is the missing component in a lot of audio consumption out there today. It's if you look at the ratio of podcast consumption between iOS and Android, it's like 5-6 to 1. So you can see that there's a huge upside opportunity with Android, looking into the future to build this medium to what it can be, because there's more Android phones out there than there are iOS phones or any other mobile platforms. So we're still underdeveloped or underutilized in the podcast area with Android. So that's where I see the opportunity is looking to the future.
Really, really helpful tips. I know that people are commenting here that's great information. Thank you so much, Rob, for sharing that. I really encourage people who are watching today who've got a live stream that they're thinking about getting a new audience to think about actually repurposing it as audio. And I do highly encourage you to think about Spreaker because of the fact that, you can have multiple different shows under one account. That is not the case with lots of other podcasting platforms where you basically have to pay per show, as in per RSS feed that you then create. And that's a significant consideration when, there's lots of other costs that go into actually producing live content. And so, very often people want to start off with, being, being cautious about what they're doing. And I just think the fact that, I think about the shows that I've had shows that have come and gone. And I've had shows that are much more sustained because we need to change direction. You've changed direction in your career. I've changed direction in my career. I've changed direction about the kind of focus areas and topics I talk about. And I think, the kind of platform that Spreaker offers gives us that facility. I do encourage people to check it out, and make sure that you go and find Rob's show in terms of that he does on a Wednesday. Rob, tell people again the URL where people can catch up with the show that you host every Wednesday, and of course, then they can go to Spreaker.com to sign up. And I'd say get the newsletter. That's how I knew about the latest update. I just couldn't remember which platform it was on when we were speaking there. But I really find your newsletters really helpful too.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. The two shows that I do, they're very easy to get to. One is SpreakerLiveShow.com, SpreakerLiveShow.com, and the other one is NewMediaShow.com. So those are the URLs, NewMediaShow.com. Very, very simple. That'll take you to each of those show pages directly, and that's SpreakerLiveShow.com.
And I can see a quick question here that's coming in about does Spreaker host? Absolutely. So if you wanted not to do live audio, so let's take, for example, the person who actually does a has a live video and they want to then turn that into an audio podcast, you can host that audio on Spreaker. Alternatively, you could actually do a live show on Spreaker, or you could do a recorded show on Spreaker. But absolutely, that's the whole point, is that not only is Spreaker a distribution channel, not only is it a way that you can reach people in terms of with live content, and then your audience can interact like people can do on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, on Periscope Live, but you can also host podcast. So you might do a 5-minute little show. I know some of you are using other tools. I'm not going to mention them here, but there's other platforms there that actually are doing a little 5-minute show. You could actually repurpose that content and have it on Spreaker as well. So people can go there and can see all the different content. And if you've got an RSS feed, which I know some of you have got from that particular platform I'm thinking of, which works on an iOS app, they give you, if you've got an RSS feed from that, you can pump that RSS feed into Spreaker and they'll do all the heavy lifting for you. So I hope that helps people to think about live audio in a different way. Absolutely use Facebook Live Audio, experiment with that. There's other platforms you can use. But I really appreciate you being with us here today, Rob, to tell us a little bit more in depth about using Spreaker. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to carry on with a couple of other pieces of news for the show, but make sure you follow Rob over on Twitter as well, and you'll be able to catch up with all the things that he's doing there too. But thanks again, Rob, for being with us here for the Livestream Insider Show.
Well, thank you for having me on. It was great to spend some time with you and your listeners and your viewers.
So I hope you found that helpful in terms of having a little bit of a deep dive there into using live audio, and particularly a platform. We don't often have a chance to get that deep into a platform, and I personally love the platform, and I love the fact that when people I follow who are over there, I can actually interact with them live. And I should also just say, one conversation I had with my eldest daughter, who's now 17, she's got herself interestingly into listening to podcasts. And so she's doing it partly for education reasons. So because she's actually preparing to apply for university and she knows she's going to get some tough questions there, she's actually finding that, if she's got a chore to do at home, let's say, for example, the washing up, if she's doing that, she actually, has her phone with her and she opens up a podcast and she sees it as a little treat. She says, I can learn while I'm doing my chores. And I thought, yes, I didn't even tell you to do that. So that was just a conversation. She didn't even know I was talking about podcasts and audio today on the show, but that was just a little thing that she shared with me, that she's suddenly tuned into a couple of podcasts of the topics that are of interest to her. And that's sometimes around entertainment, but actually at the moment for her, because she's a solid student in terms of her objectives for the next number of months, then she's actually using podcasts as a form of learning. And that's how I've done a lot of learning too. And in fact, you can listen and you can multitask. I can listen, I can drive at the same time. I couldn't watch a live video and also drive at the same time. That would not be a sensible thing to do. So let me just tell you about a couple of other things in terms of quick updates that I've got for you. Some of these you might have seen already. So if you follow my content on Twitter or on Facebook, you may well have already seen the fact that I've been sharing this content, and I've written a couple of articles about it. The first one is about an update on Facebook, and this is Facebook in terms of on Chrome. So I, again, wrote about this and did some tutorials about it on my site at krishna.me, and we've talked about it here on the Livestream Insiders, about how you can now use, in fact, both Firefox and Chrome to do a live stream. But a new update that they recently released is the fact that you've now can access a Chrome extension, so this only works on Chrome, where you can do a screen share. And that means that you could show an app, or you could show a PDF, or you could show your screen during a live stream. Now, it doesn't replace third-party tools where you might want to have things like lower thirds, or you might want to have yourself and a screen on show. So if you decide you're going to go with a screen share, you have to stay with a screen share. At the minute, you cannot alternate, or you cannot, natively within the Facebook platform, and with their now new extension, which has a release date of September, so it's been around for some people perhaps for testing for a little while, but you actually, you need to be able to use another way to get your face onto screen if you wish to do so. So either use another tool, or there's another live stream tool to do that, or alternatively you could do things like, if you've got tools that can reflect your content from your mobile device, let's say, you could show yourself on camera on your mobile device and then display it. I know Mac users have lots of things that they could use in terms of with QuickTime. I'm a PC user, so I would have to use a third-party tool to actually, let's take my camera from my mobile camera and put that up onto the screen at the same time as I'm actually talking and screen sharing. But I do think it's a very powerful option because, again, not everybody wants to be on camera, and not always is it appropriate to be on camera. And I think it just gives people another option. It's good to have that. And it also keeps all the developers on their toes, doesn't it, in terms of other features that they need to build if they want us to invest in the platforms, of which there are many, many tools now that we could use for live streaming for Facebook Live. The next one I wanted to tell you about is again, for Facebook Live, BeLive.tv. We talked about them last week in terms of having an update that they'd done with their agenda feature. Again, go back to last week's show and you'll be able to also find a link there to the tutorial I did. But the change that's happened this week is about the resolution of your video. So this is an important one to watch out for if you're live streaming to Facebook Live. BeLive.tv only streams to Facebook Live. The key thing there is when you go in and you look at the little cog in terms of checking your camera settings, so you can decide which camera you want to use, which microphone you want to use. You can set that up before you go live. But the other thing you'll see there now is a resolution, and the default is set as a 480. Now, I think this is great news for many of the BeLive users, perhaps are not as experienced a live streamer. They're nowhere near experienced as Rob and his almost 2 decades of actually doing live audio, as he was telling us about. And so therefore, often people are using BeLive and they perhaps don't have the most technically advanced infrastructure, and that's absolutely fine. And perhaps they haven't got the most powerful internet connection or the most powerful computers. If that's the case, then this is a great solution that BeLive have introduced, because it helps those people in terms of you don't have to have as high a quality resolution. So it's not as demanding on your computer in terms of that live stream. The max you can stream to, though, in terms of the resolution settings is 720. I know there are other tools that you can use, actually would take you higher than that, even 4K streaming in terms of with some platforms. But the max you can do with BeLive TV for Facebook Live is 720. So that's just something to watch out for. I think the other thing to just be aware is obviously the lower resolution you go with, particularly those of you who are looking to do things like download your video, which is pretty easy to do from Facebook. For the last number of months, it's probably coming up to 6 months now, we've not been able to download HD quality video directly from Facebook. If you go into your archive of content, let's say on your Facebook page, it's only SD content. And even that's not great. So download your video as quickly as you can if you're doing a stream with BeLive TV, because Facebook video actually degrades very, very quickly in terms of you'll get out of sync between your audio and your video there. But that's just something to be aware of if you're looking to repurpose that video and you're then wondering, oh, it's not a great resolution when I then go and take that video and I put it onto YouTube. It's going to be obviously affected by that. So if you've got the capacity and your 720 streaming works well for you, I'd say go with that. If you've got more challenges because of your technology, your infrastructure around you, then it's really good news. There's a couple of options below 720 that you have option to be able to use. So do check out for that if you're streaming with BeLive TV onto Facebook Live in the next little while. That's it for the show this week in terms of here at Livestream Insiders. I hope you've enjoyed being with us. Thank you, everybody, in terms of all your comments. I just want to take a quick look to see if there's any final comments here that I need to address. And I really appreciate you being with us. If you've enjoyed the show, and particularly in terms of, really like the fact that Rob was so generous with his time and with the tips that he shared. He went a lot more in terms of time than I actually planned for us to do. So I really want to say, please do think about sharing the show if you think people in your network are interested in live audio. Some brilliant tips that he was able to give us there. So therefore, in terms of, there's a comment here saying, thanks, Rob, excellent conversation. So thank you so much, everybody, for being with us here live. Thank you again, Rob, for being with us here for Livestream Insiders. We'll be with you this time next week. That's 7 p.m. on a Sunday evening. That's 2 p.m. Eastern time. Next week, I've got an interesting interview lined up for you, and that's a conversation with somebody from the UK, and we're going to be talking about live video and live content and augmented reality. We're also going to talk about artificial intelligence. I'm so lucky in my network. I meet people who've got lots of technology skills, and hopefully they're going to be able to guide us in terms of what's coming next and some of the interesting things that they're doing with organizations. So particularly if you're interested in artificial intelligence and in that area and how it interplays in terms of with live, you'll want to join us for Livestream Insiders. Make sure you head over to livestreaminsiders.com if you want the archives of the show, or find me over on YouTube at Krishna Day Online, or of course then find us on Livestream Insiders on Facebook, and you can find all of our archives there. If you've got interesting case studies where you've actually been using Spreaker, let us know. I'd love to know if this show today has inspired you to rethink how you're actually repurposing your video content into audio content, or perhaps you start a live show over on Spreaker. We'd love to know about it. Come back and tell us, and we'll give you a little shout out in terms of in a future episode. But for now, thank you so much for joining us here for Livestream Insiders. That's me, Krishna Day, signing out, and I hope you have a great live streaming week.